At that point, I was 15 years old. I wanted to die anyway. I dreamed about getting in a car accident or hurting myself and just expiring. And so I figured, you know what? I'll give you a shot, Jesus. If you are who people say you are, then I'll give you a chance. And sure enough, man, I learned that Jesus is real.
Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for tuning in to Desperate for God. I'm grateful that you are joining us, and today I have a very special guest. We will be speaking with Zac Bartelt. Zac has a very interesting and eclectic background that many don't, and I thought it would be really interesting to chat with him, talk about the ups and downs in life, and talk about his journey, which is covers more ground than pretty much anyone I've ever met. So Zac has multiple degrees. He went to undergrad for law and justice, and then he got his master's in counseling, and then he went on to seminary at Fuller, got his degree there. But in addition to that, in addition to being a pastor, he's also very much an artist, has done a lot of visual art, and he served 2 tours in Afghanistan as a Green Beret. And so now he also works with youth. He works with youth offering addiction and recovery services and help. And so he is here today, and we are going to blow this wide open. Welcome, Zac. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate having you here.
Yeah, you set the bar pretty high, so hopefully I don't disappoint yourself or audience members.
We're just all people, right? And we all have these different trajectories. And one of the things that impressed me when we were chatting was that despite all of this, and yes, on paper it looks amazing, but you've had a tough time. And it hasn't been easy, and somehow God has held you all together. So let's just start with the basics. How did you come to faith? What was it like growing up? And what kind of trajectory did that start in you?
Basics. I mean, just to comment on your previous comments, sometimes I've been jealous of the people that had a straight trajectory, that were super driven, know exactly what they want to do. My brother and my sister come to mind. They went in their career path right out of college. They're still to this day in the same career path. And I feel like in some sense, I'm kind of jealous of folks that have had it together like that enough to pursue that. For me, I think the reason why it has been so difficult over the years, because I'm 45 years old. I'm trying to figure out, kind of what I want to be when I grow up in some sense. So I think that's the reason why I tried a lot of different things, and I wanted to experience life. And I had a lot of inspiration from the scriptures in the Bible, which kind of led me to the military and some other areas of life, art, music. But anyway, to answer your question, I guess I'll start at the beginning. My family, we're kind of a church-going family. I remember going to church, and I remember hating it, and I remember not really sure why we were going to church, and it was just one of those fights every Sunday morning. Like, my dad, I think, was the driving factor. He wanted us to go to church, but nobody really connected there. So I didn't fully know how I came out on God when I was young. And in fact, when I got into middle school, I would probably say that I was more of an atheist. I didn't believe that there was a God. I got into heavy metal music. A lot of it was like the death metal variety. So there's much more commentary through music on spirituality and lack of faith in that particular music I was listening to. So I was just like, this is not for me, kind of thing. So
usually there's a disconnect between what's going on at home and going to church. Did you see hypocrisy in the church? Did you feel like what was being taught at church wasn't like what you were experiencing at home? What was the big thing that made you go, blech?
Yeah, I'm just going to be 100% honest and forthcoming. I'm probably going to offend some people throughout this conversation, and I'm okay with that. But it was an Episcopal church that my family had brought us to, and it was just very traditional, very structured. And I remember just listening to the priest's sermons, and I didn't identify with any of it. It was a non-issue in my life. Didn't affect me one way or the other. So I don't know if it was a hypocrisy. I think what you're trying to get at, and this was true, we went to church, and the rest of the week, we probably weren't a Christian family, if that makes sense. So that was very much like my upbringing. We just didn't really have anything to do with a faith background other than the fact that we went for an hour to church on the weekends. Sometimes we didn't always go.
So there's a disconnect there. I guess when you grow up in that sort of environment, it doesn't have any meaning, right? And there's nothing that would appeal to a young man who's striving for something sincere and authentic, I think. Okay, so you were in middle school, you got into metal and all this kind of stuff. And then you were a freshman in high school, though, and you had an experience, right?
Yeah, I went to Young Life, which is a high school ministry, and it's like more of an outreach ministry. So I met this Young Life leader on the high school campus and was kind of confused as to why this person was there. I was playing like a soccer game and he's talking to me. Unrelated, another friend invites me out to this Young Life meeting and I end up going. Now, before that, I had like a handful of friends. I wasn't very social. I was very introverted and kind of depressed. I wouldn't have known what to call it at the time, and I think a lot of middle school people do go through this phase like, do I really matter? Do people see me? Does my life mean anything? If I died, would anybody notice? All those types of like emo kid questions.
Those are deep questions for a middle schooler. I actually don't think a lot of middle schoolers go that deep.
I feel like a lot do, and it's more of a phase, whereas for me, it like defined my life. This is a proven fact from a couple books that I have read, Hurt 2.0 by Chap Clark being one of them. But he mentions the fact that between 11 and 14, you go from being a intellectual sponge where you're gathering information now to how does the world see me? Like your eyes are out. Like, where do I fit in this place? Do I fit in this community? Do I fit in this family? And so I think every adolescent has to go through that at some point. So that's kind of where I was, 16 years old or 15, went to this meeting invited by this friend. And so I had a handful of friends beforehand, was extremely introverted. And I go there and people are shaking my hand and people are inviting me to sit next to them. And it was so strange. I'm like, what is happening right now? Like these people are genuinely feel like they want me to be there, which is really unusual for me. I haven't ever felt that before at this time. And then my friend Tony gets up and he's talking about the Bible and talking about this person, Jesus. And the funny thing was he's smiling. He's telling a story. He's teaching from the Bible. And then he's to me, it came across as he knew this guy, which was really weird because every time I've been in church to that point, it was this very like talking around these like vocabulary words and these faith words that I didn't know if these people believe any of this stuff. It was my impression from an early church perspective. But here's this guy that seems to be untrained, quote unquote, as far as clergy or in any kind of spiritual sense, but he is talking very real and honest. And that was the thing that drew me in. And I came with another friend. That was the first time he was there. The first time I was there, he never came back, but I kept getting invited and I'm like, man, there's something about this place. So I would say that as a metalhead in a Young Life meeting, and if you've ever been to a Young Life meeting, you'll know what I'm about to talk about. I felt really out of place. I didn't really enjoy the actual meeting. There was songs that I hated that everybody's singing, and I'm like, what is this? It was so weird. These like Van Morrison songs. I'm like, what is going on here? And then, there's these sketch comedy type Saturday Night Live type thing, but not as funny, of course. And so you're just, this is corny.
Yeah.
But the thing that drew me really was this guy, Tony, when he was talking about Jesus. I'm like, oh man, there's something here. And so I kept coming back. And eventually that's how I met the Lord.
Got it.
At a Young Life camp. And the summer, I can't remember. I'm not good with years and ages.
That's all
I was
good.
in high school. It was the summer. That's as best I can do.
Yeah.
That's when I met the Lord.
So what was it about that particular time? Like what eventually happened? Was there anything that happened or was it just like, you know what? I believe this.
I remember saying this in my first prayer to God. I said, I'll give you a shot. I said something like that to the Lord. And now if you've been following Jesus for any length of time, you realize how foolish that is to say that to God. But that's how I felt. At that point, I was 15 years old. I wanted to die anyway. I dreamed about getting in a car accident or hurting myself and just expiring. And so I figured, you know what? I'll give you a shot, Jesus. If you are who people say you are, then I'll give you a chance. And sure enough, man, I learned that Jesus is real. The ways of the kingdom it's just a better way to live life. Plus, we get to experience a full life here on earth and guaranteed heaven. It's a pretty good deal. Pretty good deal.
What was it that made him seem real? So then you started this relationship. You said, I'll give you a shot. And even though we look back as grown-ups, we say, well, that was, foolish to give God a shot, right? But at the same time, he doesn't ever look at us that way. He knows exactly where we are in that moment. I feel terrible that at that age you wanted to end your life. That's heavy stuff. So what was real? What changed? Did you feel like you had a relationship with him?
Yeah, it was 100%. Like I noticed a change instantly. I stopped cussing. That was like the most immediate thing I realized. So here's what people have to understand. It's not obedience first, and then you get to come to Jesus. The Bible says faith without works is dead, and that's true. But it's faith first. That's the whole point of the law of Israel that was given to them, that they couldn't do it. We were the problem. The law revealed we are the problem, and you can't stop it, and you can't fix it. And so Jesus had to come. All right. So I really realized that at that point that was true. So I had a genuine faith, and things changed as a result of that faith. And so when I saw the fruit of the faith that I had, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't want to cuss anymore. That was strange. I used to steal all the time. Like anytime I could get my hands on something, steal people's money, the things from people at school, like stupid stuff, kid stuff, like candy bars. I couldn't go in a store without stealing something. I didn't want to steal anymore. I think stealing at the time, I would have never been able to articulate this at the time, but stealing for me was my way to express control over my life because I felt no control. I felt out of control, especially as a kid in a family, not really connecting with your parents, not connecting with church, not connecting with school, not having very many friends. I feel like that was one thing I had control over. I could steal things, and I had music. So those are the things that I was kind of relying on, I guess. But when Jesus came into my life, he is the genuine article. He is the only one that could fill that hole. And, he said things like to the woman at the well, if you drink the water I give, you'll never be thirsty again. And he wasn't talking about natural water, of course. He was talking about satisfaction. He's like, you were designed to be in a relationship with me. That's it. You can't get it any other way. That's the kind of experience I had with Jesus right off the bat.
That's very cool. Okay. So what was the rest of your high school years? What were they like? Were they positive? Were you just kind of slugging through to get done, looking forward to being done?
I think Jesus was the start of my social awakening. I feel like I actually became more extroverted over time. Typically, I think more naturally, I was more introverted, but I saw a lot of things change over the next couple of years. I really got into ministry. I not only was part of Young Life as in my high school experience, but I was a Young Life leader after I graduated high school for probably 10 years, working with high school people, and saw a lot of high school people come to Jesus, which is super cool. Took a lot of kids to camps and trips, and it was a great experience. So Young Life was like my first church experience, really. Young Life would say how they describe themselves. They wouldn't call themselves a church, but they really kind of are. For me, that was my first church experience.
I gotcha. I think that's fair. Okay, so then did you go to college right away?
I did. Yeah, waste of time. But it's a waste of time in the sense that intellectually, I gained almost nothing.
Yeah.
I got a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Had fun.
Yeah.
But my mom really wanted me to go. Actually, I was almost forced to go to college. Now that I think about it, she forced me to go to look at, like, there was 4 schools. She forced me to go to these 4 schools. I had to go to one of them, and I did, and I graduated. I almost didn't make it. I almost failed out. I almost got kicked out for behavioral reasons. I was not a good student in my undergrad. I was on probation academically and for behavior my freshman year.
Yeah, I mean, you strike me as kind of an adventure guy.
I forgot about that until right now.
Yeah. All right. But you got done with like a criminal justice, or is that what it was?
Yeah, criminal justice. Again, kind of a waste of time. I mean, if you wanted to pursue it, it was a good foundation. Certain courses were really fun. I met one of my favorite professors through that experience that I've ever had. So there was some value to it, but all in all, I wasn't prepared for the experience.
All right. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened, and we talked about it, and it's a little bit of a blur, but I know that you got your master's in social work. Was that after you went to seminary, or was that before you went to seminary?
Yeah, like right after college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be an FBI agent, but my grades are so poor. Like I really didn't have a great start to go into that. I couldn't even get an internship because my grades are so poor. I even had some connections. I still couldn't get into it. Anyway, so I didn't do that. Didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went back to school. Of course, that's what kids do when you don't know what you want to do and can't get a job. Yeah, you go back for more school. So I went to a graduate program for counseling because I was going to try to work with high school people in a crisis counselors. That's not what it was called, but that's basically like the position. It was for kids in crisis, and I thought that would be kind of cool. Never got that job, but I did use the degree. I still worked with high school people in intensive outpatient, it's called. So it's an area of addiction and recovery.
That is crisis, though.
Yeah.
It may not be that crisis
Yeah, that's
moment.
true.
Okay, so you went to seminary. You were a senior pastor for a while.
Yeah, so not exactly. Like I said, timelines for me are really
Yeah,
poor.
that's okay. I mean,
So, I worked.
both of those things happened. You went to Fuller Seminary. Did you enjoy that?
I did. See, I went to Fuller after I came out of the Army. So I had much more structure, much more focus and drive. And I really wanted to be a pastor. So I took it really seriously. I think I had like a 3.8 GPA in my seminary experience. Whereas I think I had a 2.1 or 2.4 in my undergrad.
You did your 2 tours
Yep.
before seminary. Wow. So you weren't just in the Army, though. You were a Green Beret. And if I remember correctly, is the Green Beret different than Special Forces, or is it part of Special Forces?
Same difference. So if there's anybody out there that's really interested, I'll describe it. Ready? So Green Berets, we are the Special Forces. We're a unit in the Army. Special Operating Forces is every service has their own version of Special Operating Forces. So I'm sure you've heard of the Navy SEALs. You've heard of the Green Berets. The Marines have something called MARSOC. Air Force has something called Pararescue or PJs. So, and they're all Special Operating Forces. Within the Army, there's only one Special Forces unit, and that's the Green Berets. The same difference.
So Green Beret is really intense.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be the best. That was my motivation. All right, so there's two big reasons why I wanted to be a soldier to begin with, and then what led me to pursuing a Green Beret. Black Hawk Down, I saw that, and it affected me at an early age. And there's one line in there where this character who says to another soldier, he's like, people call me a war junkie, but I don't even respond because to me, it's about the man next to you, and that's it. And they wouldn't understand that. So that line in that movie, I messed it up, but that line, I wanted to know what he was talking about. As soon as I heard that, I was like, man, I really wanted to understand that. And then David in the Bible, you have this character, King of Israel. He was a shepherd. He's a songwriter. He's a poet, but he was a warrior for years. I mean, a long time. And he did some really incredible things and some terrible things as a warrior. And so I always wondered, how does this fit in with your faith? Because I followed Jesus at the time, and you look up to this David, and yeah, he messed up a couple times, but he had a really impactful life. And so I really wanted to experience what the warrior component to David's life looked like. And so that's why I wanted to not only be in the service, but I wanted to be a warrior. I wanted to fight,
So do you feel like you were able to do that? Did you feel like you're able to experience some of what David experienced?
Yeah. I mean, everybody has their own philosophy, by the way. So if you're listening to me and my words right I'm about to tell you, don't assume this is every soldier and this is not every Green Beret. But I'm going to tell you how my perspective. It had nothing to do with America, the bigger picture, the war. I just wanted to fight, period. I didn't really care why I was fighting. I just wanted to experience it. So that's why we were there. And I had friends that died. And my one friend, Wyatt Goldsmith, when he passed away, I just remember that was my first tour in Afghanistan. And I was like, I didn't know how to respond to it. And my friend looked at me. My friend Danny told me, he's like, how we honor guys like Wyatt. He wanted to be here. You want to be here. So we just keep pushing forward. We keep fighting, and that's it. And then it clicked. Once my friend Danny told me that, I was able to function. But like that was a big moment, trying to figure out how to deal with that. Because that was the 100% truth. I was willing to pay the price, just like Wyatt was. And I still think about him, and not just about him, but I mean, there's a lot of people that, my friend Dom, same thing, but he's not here anymore. So we think about, and I honor those guys. I don't always like to think about it because it's like kind of sucks. I don't like watching Americans die in war movies, to be honest with you. I don't really watch too many anymore. But anyway, did I get to experience
what you wanted? Did you experience what you wanted to experience?
I did, a lot of crazy things too. I mean, miraculous things, probably, maybe. I could tell you a couple of stories, I suppose, if you really want to hear.
If there's one you'd like to share, sure.
So my first tour, I was a little more bloodthirsty, I guess. I just wanted to fight. I was extremely violent, and I think now listen. Here's another thing you have to understand: war is not like real life. And there is something that I feel like it took me like 10 years to chill out after I got out of the Army. And thank God he helped me do that. But there is something that not only, what you see and what you experience over there, but preparing for the lifestyle to be in war and what you have to do to get there. I feel like we ask a lot from soldiers. We really do. It's asking a whole lot. It's not natural. War is the least natural thing to the human psyche there is. You almost have to reduce somebody to an object to do it. I watched an Afghan, he was shot twice in the stomach, and I'm watching him there, and it's like he wasn't even a real person to me. Like, I could care less. And I think about that now. I'm like, man, like that was how that was a human person, but at the time I was just like, wow, okay, it didn't matter. and then there's something different about like special forces Green Berets versus every other soldier. Like your teammates are your teammates. That's your family. Every other soldier didn't really matter to me as much. And probably most Green Berets would say the same thing. But there was another guy that was with us. He wasn't a special forces guy. He was like an infantryman. And he was like burned, like 3/4 of his body was burned. I don't even know if he survived, to be honest. But it didn't matter to me at all. And I feel bad saying that, but his friends were really affected. I remember like watching their faces, and they were like, I could tell in that moment, like these guys are scarred for life. But for me, I was just like, I called the helicopter, I got him out of there, but I was like, moving on. Anyway, so I'll tell you about a miraculous story. That's some bad stuff. And all this to say, I hope you can give me some grace, because it is not the same mentality as a normal person. It's just not.
Absolutely.
I wish we didn't have to do that. But it's a fallen world. But I will tell you, it took me a long time. I'm almost a pacifist. I mean, there's certain things I would have to, defend my kids and that. But I mean, for me to be aggressive toward another human being, like there's almost no reason why I would ever want to do that, like, ever again. Anyway, so here's a positive story. So there was another infantry guy that was attached to us, and we were attacked, and an RPG came into the camp and at this guy's position. Now, I had been praying. My first tour, I wasn't praying as much. My second tour, I was more in prayer, and I was more like sensitive to like what God is doing with me, and I got to read the Bible more often. And so I would say from a faith perspective, my second tour was a lot better. But this guy, he was shot at by an RPG. The RPG hits a can of grenades. Like there's a whole can of 40 millimeter grenades. It hits the can of grenades. Nothing goes off. This other guy, I can't remember his name, he's standing right next to it. Now, if any of that detonated, he would have been vaporized. We would have been like picking up, body parts all over the place. But nothing went off. It hit right next to him, and it was a dud. So you could call that chance, and stuff like that happens too. But I remember I got a chance to talk to the guy afterwards. I was like, hey, man, God has something for you in this life. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. He was a young kid. I don't think he really fully grasped like what just happened.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're almost a pink mist, bro. We would have never found you. So, but fortunately, nothing happened. So, and I did get this word from the Lord, I feel like, before I went on that tour, and I felt like God say, nobody within your care is going to die, which was kind of cool. However, God never said that nobody in your care wouldn't be hurt. And sure enough, there was a guy that got burned on that tour pretty bad, but I don't think nobody died. And so the whole tour, I thought about that, and it kind of left open the space to work my faith, because I'm like, well, he never said people won't get hurt, and I don't want people to get hurt either. So like I had to pray. Like it kind of forced me to pray continually, because I'm like, I don't want my teammates to get hurt. And I could tell you 100 other stories of that tour. Stuff almost happened. Like almost could have been bad. My friend got shot at, almost hit him. I was standing on top of this area where we got attacked, and like I didn't have my armor on or anything. Bullets were flying right in the same area, but just after I got down, like just afterwards. I mean, so who knows what could have happened? We got rocketed, and like almost every 3 nights we got attacked in that one place. I was on the HLZ, and I remember just me and my friend in the middle of the night, and just a rocket goes like right overhead and detonates like far. Like they were shooting at us, but they missed. So yeah, tons of stories like that.
It's intense. Now,
Yeah.
As a Christian, how did you feel in the middle of battle? Did you feel any nervousness? Did you feel just, I don't know, grounded? What kinds of emotions as a trained soldier at the highest level who's also a Christian? Not that everyone's the same, because of course that's not the case. But what did you feel in those intense moments of battle?
Yeah. First firefight, both tours. It's the only one that I was like afraid. And I always tell my son too, this is like just a phrase to live your life by, in my opinion. Even though you're afraid, you can still be brave. I think that's pretty good advice. To think that you'll never be afraid is stupid. But that first firefight, both tours, I remember being afraid, like shaking, like, whoa, like this is crazy, unnatural. And after that, I feel like it was totally fine. It was like nothing. I think everybody's a little bit different. And I think another reason why Special Forces is different is because we train and anticipate and are like waiting for the opportunity. It's like, it's just all we talk about. It's how we train every day. Like our shooting courses are so intense. Like, so I feel like the training is the thing that you can rely on.
Yeah.
And we trained a lot. Not only before I became a Green Beret, but after I trained, like all the time, constantly. I always knew what to do. I was never like, even if we got shot at here, I knew exactly what to do. My second tour especially. First tour, I made a ton of mistakes. I made a couple mistakes my second tour too, but I just feel like I learned quickly, and I always knew what to do because of the training. Yeah.
That's a life that a lot of people don't get to experience. And again, to become a Green Beret is extraordinary training. It's
2 years.
Yeah, but also you have to pass all kinds of tests. Not even if you wanted to do it, there's no guarantee that you would make it in.
Yeah, for sure. Just the selection. There was 403 people, I think, that started the selection course. It's a 3-week course. I think 60 finished, and only 40 got chosen to continue. The majority of those people didn't make it through, whether they got hurt or they quit or didn't make it through a gate, just for whatever reason. People drop like flies, man. It's like any number of reasons. You could get kicked out, DUIs. A lot of people like just did stupid stuff and got kicked out.
So then you came back, and like you said, it took 10 years to chill out. Not to get into an extensive conversation about that, but what does that mean exactly?
Man, I just remember I was very rigid in my thinking. And here's a not so scary story I could tell. Like when my first son was born, I was so structured, man. Like he got fed every 3 hours. I knew exactly when to wake up in the middle of the night to feed him so that he would get regulated so he can sleep through the night. And he was the only child that slept through the night after 3 months. I have 4 kids. I was up at least once for about 5 years in a row. After that, he was the only one that actually like slept through the night after like a few months. I really attribute that to like the rigidity of how he was fed, and how on top of it I was. I woke up, I volunteered. I was used to not sleeping and like getting up for all kinds of reasons, so it didn't really bother me. I was like, okay, I'll bring him over, I'll get him fed, I'll put him back. You know, kid 2, 3, and 4, you're like, you lose some of that intentionality. So, but yeah, so the rigidity, the structure, just the intolerance, I guess. Yeah, and just like I said, it just doesn't really apply well to a normal life. I mean, you know, so
You have to make a pretty big adjustment.
yeah.
I can't imagine, actually. Now, throughout this whole time, is it fair to say you did deal with bouts of pretty debilitating depression at times?
Yeah, ever since I was about probably 11.
So that's been ongoing. And you don't, when you talk, you don't strike anyone as a person where that would come out of your mouth, because in your own way, I think you're extremely driven in some ways. I mean, it may be driven to experience that. I don't know. There's something there, and you're very bright and don't give the impression of struggling with it, but clearly it's been a huge deal. And so you got back from that. Now you don't have your band of brothers around you, for lack of a better term. You're in seminary, you get through seminary and you became a pastor.
I wanted to be a pastor. I felt called since I was in my young 20s. So I feel like it was a 10-year preparation period, but man, it was very valuable. I don't know how to describe it. We need to gather together. We need leaders in a spiritual sense. I took it seriously, so that's why I wanted to go to seminary. I wanted to be qualified and trained for it, and I just like studying the Bible anyway. So I feel like it was a lot of fun. Seminary was great. I had classes where we just sit around and read the Bible. I'm like, man, this is so cool. And then we had the benefit of somebody that speaks Greek and Hebrew as a professor that knows like all this different stuff that you would have never probably had access to. So it was a great experience, man. I really, really enjoyed it. Would I ever want to work for a church again? Probably not.
Was your experience as a pastor mixed? Was it positive and challenging? Was it?
It was like pastoring was great. Depending on the church family that you work with, it could be a really great experience or it could be a really troubling experience. Because here is a group of people that you are expecting to live a certain way to a certain degree, and it doesn't always happen that way. The first church I worked for was Freedom Church, Philadelphia. I actually was part of the prayer team 10 years prior that we would pray for this church. We really wanted a church in Philly. We were hoping to get a church. We had no pastor. We had no idea what we were doing. It's just a bunch of people that really believed that this is what God wanted to do. And so it was cool to be a part of that community. I moved away, and during that time, that's when I was in the Army and all. I did a couple other things. I moved back to Philadelphia, and I worked for that church that was meeting in Center City, which is where we prayed for. We had a pastor that was somebody that we prayed for. We had like 2 or 3 services on the weekends. It was an awesome church family. It was so cool. And I just remember thinking like, man, this is like, I kind of left for a while, but the seeds that God helped used me to help plant, and then the group of people that really sowed into that place were still there, and the church was growing, and it was a really cool experience. That team was awesome. I had such a positive experience, man. I really have the best things to say about all those people, and the pastor there. I did work for another church, and it was a lot different. I still liked it from a pastoral perspective. I really enjoyed it. The church leadership, something was off. Something was off. And I knew something was off because 2 weeks before I'm supposed to go and work for this church, one of my good friends calls me and tells me that his wife's having an affair. And I was like, oh, man, bro, I'm so sorry, dude. And he's like, it's with Caleb. I'm like the pastor's son. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, really? I'm like, dude, the level of betrayal and stuff that happened in that church. I was running damage control since I was hired to come there, and it was just like I'm convincing people to stay at the church for the next 6 months or however long I worked there. I can't remember how long it was. So it was like in one sense, it was the young adult ministry, which me and my ex-wife helped plant, was a group of people I really loved and cared about. And so it was really fun being a part of that group and team. And I was working in the youth ministry, and I was helping baptize people. I was overseeing the baptism ministry. I was a campus pastor for that church, by the way. So I did a little bit of everything. I was teaching all kinds of different classes, preaching a bunch of times a month. And man, it was so fun. The church leadership, something was off. That's all I can say. I love those people, man. I would be happy to have coffee and sit down with anybody. Like, no hard feelings at this point, although there was a significant level of betrayal towards me for almost no reason. But does it bother me anymore? No, not at all. Man, I don't even think about it. But I am thankful that I had the experience. I learned something. God used me there, and even in the midst of leaving that church, and I don't, like I said, man. I feel like every experience in my life, if I could say that I learned something, that I gained something, I don't count it as like even if I suffered through it, which I didn't completely, but it was a really hurtful exit. I'll say that, and I really wish it could have been different. But
I think the thing that struck me when we chatted by phone was that you're not going to church and you don't necessarily know if you ever will go to church, but at the same time, you feel like we need to meet together as believers.
Trying to figure out, you caught me in a very transitional part of my life right now, man. So like, I'll be honest with you. I'll be happy to talk about it, but yeah, you're 100% right. It does seem double-minded. It does seem a little strange.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that those are two realities that coexist. I'm not at all insinuating that you're double-minded, not in the least. No. I'm just wondering how that coexists.
Fortunately, too, where I work professionally and where I get paid from is, for all intents and purposes, a church family. I mean, it's a ministry. It's a nonprofit Christian ministry. Yeah. Talk about Jesus influences everything we do. We have biblical curriculum. We pray together every day. We pray for the meals. There's biblical counseling. Everything we do in that program, it's designed to introduce people to Jesus. Be like, this is the person you have to meet, and he will change your life. We'll help you, but Jesus will change your life. Give us 12 months, and you could have a different life. And that's where guys come in. So it's a 12-month recovery program, and in many ways, that is a church family for me. I really appreciate being, and that team, man, I'm so thankful. I've worked for a bunch of different teams, of course, over the years, and I really appreciate the diversity of the ministry team we have here. And just the heart, like, with the exception of me, everybody has gone through the program themselves and come out of addiction. So the stories I hear on a regular basis, it's like, wow, miracle stories, like really powerful stuff. And so it's like commonplace where I am, which is pretty cool. You don't always hear that. The desperation, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. You don't always hear people desperate for Jesus, and there people are desperate, which is awesome. I think we all need to be in that place.
At some point, I think so. I'm glad you have that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Okay.
Could I work for a church again? An American church? Probably not. and you know what? And it's like, I don't really listen to the news, or I don't really like hearing like the gossip or the Christian gossip or buzz or what's going on in church. So you hear about this pastor and this and that. They can live their life. If they made mistakes, they'll deal with it before God or before men. It's whatever. Here's what I would say about American church that I've taken away from my personal experience. The role of pastor is a completely misunderstood role. How many people do you think you could effectively pastor?
I've never thought about it.
Jesus had 12. 12. Right? Now, granted, he had many other people that were following him that he knew personally. But like, how many people realistically can you pastor and walk with? I mean, we call people pastor that are, have thousands of people going to church, and each of those people would say, "This is my pastor." I'm like, that's not really a biblical understanding of what pastor means. Like, maybe they're your teacher. You listen to them. They're the leader of this movement. Are they your pastor? I mean, no, not really. And then the second problem is, I feel like as human beings in general, we commit idolatry. That's like, it's ingrained in us. It's just part of our brain. It's part of our worldview. Like, we want to put something on that pedestal of worship. And so now we're in church family. What do? We have a pastor that we serve as an idol. I feel like it's not healthy for a pastor. It's not healthy for the people. I really wish there could be a way that you could, kind of like the priests in the Old Testament on the Day of Atonement, they could disappear behind the veil and minister before the Lord, kind of thing, so that the people didn't see him, but they knew that on their behalf the priests were ministering. If that makes sense. I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer, but I know how I felt when I was a pastor, and everybody's telling you how awesome you are, how strong your message was, just looking up to you, calling you pastor, you have the title and this and that. And man, it bolsters pride, man. And I think at some point during my time as a pastor, I realized, like, I don't want to be one of those guys. I don't want to have my just a huge head, and everybody looking at me like my life is perfect, because it's really not. Number one, it can never be. I can never hold that, what you're thinking. I can never live that fully. And I just didn't want to be consumed by pride and arrogance. And I just feel like, man, I really dislike listening to a lot of pastors teach, because I can just hear the arrogance in their voice. Like, I got a word from the Lord. I don't know how to describe it. It's just, you can hear it in somebody's voice when they really are proud of themselves. And I just, thank God, I just never wanted to be that man. And I still, to this day. So I mean, that's the biggest reason. If I could be a pastor and not be exposed to that, maybe I would consider it.
Well, I like what you said.
I don't know if it came out right. I hope it came out right, but
it's not that I have the claim to total objectivity, but I feel like you gave an extremely fair and balanced assessment of what's wrong with the church. When I was growing up, I had star eyes for sure. I wanted to be somebody, and largely because my parents and family were so blasted accomplished. My extended family as well. Like, I felt so insignificant. And so I wanted to do great things. And I realize now that had I gotten the things I wanted in my teens and 20s and even 30s, even as after becoming a Christian, I would have absolutely 100% let it get to my head. It would have been my downfall. If I had, at the time it felt like dashed dreams, it felt like dashed hopes, but it was amazingly loving of the Lord not to let me achieve the things I wanted, because it really was all about me. And so you're bringing up a really great point, that when we are steeped in affection and affirmation and people think that we can do no wrong, and a lot of times they're encouraging us out of the goodness of their hearts or the kindness, but when you multiply that by hundreds or thousands, I can imagine how strong you would have to be able to withstand that. So I think a lot of what you said is super insightful. I think you're very fair. I really do. I've been impressed every single time I've talked with you that, yes, you're candid, but you're so sincere.
Reality is, I'm not mad at the church. I'm not mad at God. I really want, like, the best. I do recognize that we're imperfect people, that no church is going to be, perfect. All I can tell you about is my experience and what I read in the scriptures.
Yeah.
So that's where my commentary comes from.
I think you're where you are is, I think, very healthy. But now, through all this whole thread too, because we do have to wrap this up, you have been an artist from the get-go. And that's a big part of your life and expression, right?
Yeah. I'm a visual artist, and I make music. I play guitar and sing as well. So I was really pursuing a songwriter, or being a songwriter, years ago. I just really have fun. I play and write just for the sheer enjoyment. I don't record anymore or do anything with that. I still paint. I have paintings all over the house right now, like all the stuff that I've done. And if I get an idea, I'll put it together.
And you're pretty eclectic as an artist. I mean, you do all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I like, I don't know. I like abstract stuff. I love Andy Warhol and Basquiat and like the 80s pop art, and I love graffiti and street art. So I have I love like gothic and dark like photography, and and I love anime. So I feel like, and even music too. A lot of music has really influenced my artwork over the years, specifically
I can see
metal.
that. No, it's super impressive. And then on top of that, you found a couple of years to be a fashion model in New York City.
Oh, yeah,
You
dude.
actually made your living doing that.
Making a living is a bit of a stretch.
Like other people do.
I survived.
Yeah, that's a miracle, man.
I survived. It was a miracle. Now, in addition to being a model, I had like 5 different jobs. Though I was like,
Yeah,
when you're
it's
a
like
model in
being
New
an
York
actor.
City, you live. Now, it's not like Zoolander, of course, but I lived with like 4 other models. Or actually, not all of them were models. Most of them were. I had like a million jobs. We were always catering. We were going, doing all this weird stuff and bartending and working parties and anything you could for part-time gigs so that you can go to casting calls and stuff
Yeah,
like
but you
that.
got some pretty big jobs, right? Didn't you?
I mean, I was in Fashion Week was the coolest part. I liked doing runway shows. That was kind of fun.
Yeah.
Did a bunch of those magazines and
Zach, you've had the most eclectic career of anyone I've ever met. And I've met a lot of people.
yeah. Well, I guess I'll take that as a compliment.
I think there's another project for you is writing a book. I think you have a lot to say. I think,
Actually, funny thing, I had said by the end of 2025 I would release this book I was reading about my military experience, and I did finish it. Except part of my problem is like I'll get really focused in on something, and even when it's done, I lose interest, and I'm like, eh. It's the same thing with art, dude. I'll start doing something, and then it'll sit there unfinished for years, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, what was I gonna do with that? I wouldn't go as far as to say like I'm ADD. I've never diagnosed, but it's really hard to stay on task. I can't write a whole song anymore. I have to only write pieces of songs because I get bored.
it is hard to complete a song. I mean, I've written a lot of songs. That is true for everybody who writes, that you can have an amazing bridge or an amazing intro or great whatever, but to put it all together and not force it.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're a professional writer, you have to force it. You have to write, 100 songs, but you realize that they're not all going to be good. In fact, most of them are not going to be good. But
that's
if
the
you're an
thing I
inspired
realized.
writer, it just takes a lot of time.
That's the thing I realized the most about art. You got to paint hundreds of paintings before you get maybe a few that you're really proud of.
Yeah.
Same thing with songs. Same thing with any art form, writing, poetry. Yeah, you got to write and do a lot, and that's
Yeah.
okay. I finally realized and come to a peace about that. Like most of my paintings, like I either give away, I've painted over, I've thrown away. I don't know how many paintings I've given, hundreds of paintings that I've just either thrown away or given away, because it wasn't a waste. It was just part of the continuum. That's it. I was learning. I gained something from it. I learned from it.
Isn't that kind of what life on this side of heaven is, though? It's kind of a continuum. And we were made for eternal relationship with the Lord. So, how he made us, like the best of us, is something we bring onto the other side, but it becomes more clear, more apparent, more useful to the Lord. And, we're made for eternal relationship. When he created us, he didn't create us as like the sinner, Ben. He created me with the, I don't know, traits that he gave me to bring into my eternal relationship, because this life on this side of heaven is a drop in the bucket. It's nothing. And so his idea of me, I think he doesn't see me. I mean, obviously he sees me in need of salvation. He sees me that, but he knows that. And everybody's in the same boat. But when he makes you and when he makes me, he made you an artist. He made you a warrior. He made you all this stuff. But these traits are all about your eternal life. And it's going to be interesting to see when we bring these into the other side, like Paul says, then we'll see fully, just as we'll be fully known. It's going to be great. It's going to be interesting. And so I think that I feel like you've given little flashes of how God's made you all along this journey. And maybe it doesn't seem cohesive, but it is a continuum. And I was struck when we first talked, you're like, I asked, well, how do you see God holding it together? And you're like, I don't know. And maybe we can't articulate it, but definitely seems like he's done it in his own unique way with you.
Yeah, I will say that. I mean, I've been meeting with a counselor for the past year and a half or so, and I've learned a lot about the brain He's a Christian counselor as well, but he really helped me see mental health and just the different areas of life and how they do come together in a lot of ways. And just give me some practical tools on how to, just function and not only survive, but to choose what to think about, to choose what to dwell about. All this is scriptural, by the way. I mean,
Yeah,
um,
it
be
is.
transformed by the renewing of your minds, meditate on these things, whatever is pure and noble and trustworthy, dwell on these things, do not let this book of law depart from your lips, meditate on it day and night. So all this is biblical principles, but he was really helping me see what the current science is of the brain and how your brain is actually working and how to basically take control of your life, because the brain is flesh, correct? I mean, it's literal flesh. It's this mysterious place where your physical body and your spiritual being come to some type of union. It's a mystery. I don't completely understand this. Some people would say that all of spirituality takes place in the brain. That's like a physicalist mentality. I don't really prescribe to that. But there is some type of weird way this is all connected in our brain, right? What we're meditating, what we're thinking, and how our flesh is pre-programmed to destroy ourselves, because in this body of sin, we gravitate toward, unfortunately, death in many different ways: spiritual health, mental death, financial, emotional, even through addiction and things that people actually do destroy their lives with. But that's a result of sin, right? So anyway, I'm sharing that because that has been really valuable to me this past year, is understanding how the brain works with our spirituality, and to function, I guess, in the world is the best way to describe it. And I don't know. That's kind of where I am right now. So I do recognize that I need lots of goals. So I set short-term goals for myself that I can accomplish. Even this weekend, I have a bunch of stuff that I was like, if I don't set these goals for myself, I foresee a weekend of depression. so, so I focus on that so I can accomplish something, so I can, not only do something and check it off the list, but because it occupies my brain space, as opposed to meditating on things that I don't want to meditate on.
Yeah.
Anyway, just some simple things that have been really helpful. It's a lot to share in a really short conversation, but hey, man, God is good. If we're wrapping this thing up, God is good. That's
It
all I
was
can
an
say.
action-packed episode. And
Is
I don't
it?
know if you had on your docket you're going to record a podcast episode, but you did that.
I feel like I wasn't funny enough. So hopefully, if you have me back for the comedy hour next time, I could try better. Yeah, but you know what? The only reason I listen to podcasts is to laugh. Like, I want to laugh. I want to hear
Okay.
something funny. So I hope everybody that's listening to you, I hope I did my best, man. I really tried to be.
I think everyone's just looking for authenticity and to see how God works in different people, to be encouraged, But I'm really glad I met you. I look forward to listening to this and putting it together, because there's so much there. You offered a lot. And so thank you. Thanks, Zac. I appreciate it. And Zac, is there any way that people can find out more about you, more about your art, more about you in general? How can people reach you?
My art account for Instagram is becoming air art. So it's becoming underscore air, AIR underscore art. If you're interested in seeing my artwork, if you want to get in touch with me, if you really want to say hi, I guess you can do that there also.
That's great. Thank you so much. And also, listeners, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to tune in and to listen. I'm grateful for you. This is the reason why I do it. I want to point to Jesus and the lives of other people. But thank you for taking the time. It means a ton to me. And if you feel comfortable, if you'd be so kind as to rate and review the podcast if you like it, I would be super grateful for that. But thanks again for listening, and I will look forward to future episodes. In the meantime, take care and God bless you, and I'll see you next time.